Alright, so I'm filming this video after the other video I filmed, which you guys will see later in the week if you will watch it. Anyways, this video is going to be me talking about how I built the van, and not necessarily why I built it or everything I've replaced, just mostly lots of questions I've been getting asked, or how did you do this, how did you do that. So this video is going to hopefully go over some of that stuff, and I should be able to explain most of the custom stuff. The factory stuff most people should know how to do, but I'll try to go over lots of the custom stuff. So let's get into it. Starting off, we'll go engine bay, then we'll go the interior, and then we'll go suspension. So in the engine bay, this is a Chevy S10 blower box out of like an 85 through early 90s, when they were still the square before they turned into more of a round. So this is the blower box out of that, and basically what I did was I drilled 2 holes right here for the heater core lines to go into same blower motor for the S10. So there's just a ground up to there. This is just another ground. It's a little messy right there, and what I had to do was just cut this angled. So basically this right here would come straight down, and I just had to cut it and re-weld it right along there, and then bondoed it, painted it so that it would look half decent. And so that goes for that. So this works actually pretty well if you can live with some other stuff, which we can talk about a little bit later. We go over. That is a throttle body off of a 5.7 350, which in my opinion makes it a little bit more snappy. Plus I did the little delete plate on it. My intake right here, this is normally just a hole here that would go for PCV. I blocked it off and made it for intake temperature sensor, and it is what it is. This is a mass airflow sensor that is just ported right through, so it's just a hollow mass airflow sensor. Works fine, don't have any problems with that. We'll come down to, this is a factory power steering with AC van, and this is normally the AC thing sits up to like about here, so the compressor can sit on top of that. What I did was I cut it basically like this triangle like that, made a plate to go on top of it, and I basically just JB welded it together, and it looks pretty good. So no issues there. This is my intake. Yes, I know it sucks in hot air. I really don't care. It is freezing. There's snow on the ground. Who cares right now? Come down to clutch fan delete, because someone asked me about that the other day. Actually, a few people have been asking me about that. Basically, all you do is you unthread the clutch fan off of here. It's left-hand thread, and it just takes a little bit to get it off, a little bit of force. But you can take it off. I have a single fan mounted on here, which I haven't even had to use yet because this fan runs so cold, which is wired in right down here to my own separate fuse box right here. This is fine. As soon as you take the clutch fan out and all this stuff, I find that the van runs a lot colder because there's not as much stuff in here to soak up all the heat, so the heat is distributed a lot better. So right here is my own little fuse box. Yes, it's just zip tied onto here so it can stay in place for now. It's fine, it works. So I have my 3 switches that run off this one, which is actually just powered right through to where my battery goes. So this is a battery junction point. So normally the computer would sit right here, the battery would sit right here, and the fuse box would sit like basically right here. So fuse box, computer, battery, and I think there's something else here, but I can't remember. But I moved the fuse box over here. The computer is right down here, and there's no more battery, so there's just that wiring, which is not very pretty, but I can understand it and it makes sense. I think that goes for as much as I can in the engine bay. If I go to the interior, I get a lot of questions about how did I install my tack. So with this tack, I made a video a long time ago. It has like 10,000 views now, and I installed it one way, but I ended up installing it another way, which works 100% fine. So these are my 3 switches here. and these run the blower motor. So this would be, what do you call it? This is my fan. So you can wire the fan into a temperature sensor, a relay, and blah blah blah, so that it will turn on once it hits a certain temperature. I like to manually control it, and I can basically just turn it on and do whatever I need to when I need to. So I've got all that, and I find it works pretty good. So this is my fuel pump as well, because I have some other stuff that I did for that. So these gauges here, they're not permanent. I'm just testing out stuff to see what I like. What I'm actually going to be doing is taking the gauges and putting them basically like 1, 2, 3 along here, and I'm going to have 3 of these ones, and we're going to have the pressure ones still in the same place, and then there's going to be switches underneath them. So all these switches are going to be moved to here, these are going to go to here. I'm going to do that way later, like that's probably going to be when summer comes again. But anyways, for this tack, how I installed it is there is the ignition coil right here, and there's actually a plug back here. You can see my green wire right there. That's the wire that runs to the tack, and there's the signal wire right into here. And let's see if I can grab it. So it's spliced in to one of them is ground and one of them is the feed wire. So the I don't remember which one's which now. Can I see which one I spliced into? You know what? I don't remember exactly, but there's tons of videos on YouTube of how to actually do this. It's the exact same as a Chevy S10 with a 4.3, but I actually don't remember how I did it. It was, or which one I did it into, because it was about a year ago. And I had to do the same research all you had to do to figure it out. Let's see, get this plugged in. Alright. So if I come back into the inside, another one I get asked about is my shifter right here. Yes, I have a 5-speed shift knob on here. This is an automatic, okay? This has got the park, reverse, neutral, and it's reversed so that this is park, it's reverse, neutral, drive, 3, 2, 1, like that. And there's a little bit of play in it, so that's first right there. First, second, third, fourth, and then neutral, reverse, park. Park locks in pretty good. Anyways, this is called it's like an American racing or American shifter, something like that. It was actually very expensive. This actually mounts right on top of the transmission, so as if it would be a manual. So if you were to do a Chevy S10 manual swap, there's actually this is roughly where the shifter would come out, or a little bit back, somewhere around here, but you can always just make your own custom shifter that is suited to what you like. The factory vans actually come with the whole, I think it's somewhere right around here, like this, where the shifter would be for the manual transmissions in these vans. But the transmission actually is offset, so the transmission comes back and then the shifter is offset over here. I don't know why they did it. Would have been perfectly fine right here. So that's pretty much everything for the interior. Nothing is really too crazy as of right now. That's pretty much all we got. If we move to the back, we can also do this. You ready? Oh my god, look, it's the ground. Okay. Come back here. This is where the battery is located. So in order to put the battery back here, you just had to cut out, there's a little spot that's back here. You cut that out. Battery fits in here perfectly fine. Mine's pretty mounted solid. It's just mounted with this piece right here that's from the factory, that mounts at factory, with this little bar that goes to the other side. It's fucking confusing, but it makes sense and it works and I understand it. And you can put the cover right here. This will go back over top of it. You don't even notice it's there. Everyone's happy. So, next thing we come into, sorry, my back here is a mess because it's all the interior for my car. Anyways, these right here are holding the fuel tank up, and this little thing right. So right there is how I fill it with gas right now, but I will be making this so that it goes out here. So it's going to come out like that and back outside. And this is just my plate. I put some silicone around it to seal it off. So underneath here you can see that that is my fuel cell. This fits perfectly in between where the spare tire normally would go. You just have to cut out the little section or whatever. If you're curious, this is basically 1 foot across that way, and I don't remember how long it is that way. I just remember it's 1 foot that way. So that's how far you need it, about 1 foot. You have 1 foot 3 or 2 inches, something like that. So you can't get anything too wide, just get something that's pretty long and you can fit in between the frame rails. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure that this one is custom made. I just got it from someone else, so I don't know if they made it or not, but I think they did. Back here I have a DJM suspensions flip kit, which we had to modify in order for me to go as low as I am. Next up are air shocks right here. So air shocks people normally use to help lift their vehicle up if they're carrying a heavy load or something. But if you lower this van and you go for the 7-inch drop all the way down, it gets it very low, but you can actually use these shocks and get about another 2 inches above. So you can see I'm sitting right now, and you see how much clearance I have from the frame, from the axle to the frame, plus I also have a C-notch in there, so I have plenty of clearance, no issues right there. But if you are going to be as low as I am, you have to be careful of the diff up there. So you can see that the diff is pretty close to the floor, and with all that suspension travel, there's a possibility that it could hit. But right now there's probably about 6 inches, but I also need the clearance because it's leaf springs and they're not very stiff, they're pretty soft. Oh, lots of talking. So there's my fuel pump right there. Fuel pump is ran to factory lines that they are factory fuel lines. Rubber lines all the way back, no hard lines. They're rubber lines from front to back, except for when it gets to the intake manifold, then that's when they become the hard lines again. I have polyurethane subframe bushings, seem to work pretty good. I put them in not too long ago, and they're working pretty good. I think that's pretty much it for the rear end and custom wise, but in order to go as low as I am, you're going to need to do the C-notch for sure, unless you feel like hitting the frame or not putting too much load in the back, which sometimes I feel like I would like to put some load in the back, but I never really do. And you didn't need to do a fuel cell. I did a fuel cell because my gas tank was rotten out and it was the cheaper option to actually go with the fuel cell. So these are my stock wheels. They're pretty ugly looking. Up front, I tell people this all the time. You cannot really see it, but these are Beltec. I believe they're either 2 or 2.5 inch. I don't remember, but it's a 4.5 inch drop total with knuckles and the springs. So 4.5 inch drop on the front and about a 7 when all the way aired out in the back, which is pretty decent. I really like how low it is. And you can see up here, I do have clearance still, but I'm also, you can see like it kind of divots down in here, but on the road it's a lot less travel, but I still will be trying to go a little bit lower later on, but I have a different tire size that I have to go with. For people wondering what tire size I'm running, these are 215 70/15. I find anything bigger you will rub. These are stock, they will fit fine, even with my wheels I had on before, which were an 8 -27 offset. No rubbing there, except for when I tried to go wider. So when I tried to go wider and I turned, I would hit right here, and this is bashed in with a bar just because, or with a hammer, because trying to make clearance. So I will be going to a smaller tire. I'm actually probably going to be running either a 215 55 or a 215 50/15, which will actually bring the tire about down to here. Way smaller of a tire, give me a little bit lower suspension ride and like lower it down a little bit, but it will give me way more room to be able to turn and whatnot. In the front, I just did brand new core support, which I pulled out of another van. That was actually fairly easy to do, so don't be afraid to try it yourself. Just either have someone who can weld for you, or hopefully you know how to weld, because you'll obviously want to weld it back into place. And I think that's going to go over everything. I think that's going to go over everything that is custom on the van. Everything else is basically just stock replacement. For now, that is custom. There's big changes that I want to go in with the future. And I do have something to say. If you are planning on going low in the front, the Beltec springs are still kind of soft, so you do get a little bit of squishiness to it, so it's not a very terrible ride. It's still a pretty good ride. If you're looking for super stiff ride, I recommend going to coilovers, and you cannot find coilovers for the GMC Safari or Chevy Astro. You actually have to look up S10, and I say look up S10 because the S10 and Blazer all have the exact same front suspension. I'm pretty sure, like I'm 99.9% sure, that the springs from an S10 and the suspension from an S10 will fit the exact same into the Chevy Astro. So if you want to go coilovers, I recommend getting some coilovers. They're actually probably going to cost you less money to get the coilovers than the springs and the knuckles, because the springs and the knuckles were just over $500, and you can get coilovers for just a little over $400. So if I could go back, I probably would get the coilovers, or you could get air ride for the front. You can also do air ride in the front, go all the way down, and do it in the back as well. I don't know. I will either be going to air ride or coilovers way in the future, not anytime soon, because I have a lot of other stuff I want to save up money for. I think that's going to cover everything. If you have any questions, leave any comments. If you have any questions, you can follow me on Instagram, which I'll leave my Instagram in the description. DM me on Instagram. We can talk about it. I always post this stuff on the van, and you can usually see updates that I do more on there, and sometimes I joke around with it or go drifting with it. And so check that out, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.